So today's webinar is going to be focused on a research profile. I understand that most of you or some of you would have already done some projects related to research, but it is imperative to get a first author review paper or research paper published if you want to, get admits from good universities. Okay. So today we are going to delve into how to convert your projects into a research paper and how to start writing your own research or review paper. Okay. And the finer details like the paper outline. And I'm going to be breaking down every part of the research paper into tiny details. Okay. And then at the end, I'm going to be taking you through how we can help you build your research profile by helping you to write a first author research and a review paper. And I'm also going to be talking a little bit about our scientific machine learning bootcamp. So stay with us right till the end. If you have any questions, keep posting them on chat and we will do our best to answer them. We'll also be posting a recording on our YouTube channel. So if you feel, if you've missed some slide and you would want to revisit that slide, you can later watch the YouTube recording also. Okay. And if at the end, if time permits, we'll take a few questions. So keep posting your questions on chat, and if time permits, we'll take them at the end. Okay. So let's start. So if today is your first Videsh's webinar, I would like to, give you a brief insight into what we are, what we do, and what our mission is. Okay. So Videsh was founded by three co-founders, Dr. Raj, Dr. Rajat, and Dr. Sridat, who are award-winning scientists and researchers from IIT Madras, MIT, and Purdue University in the US. Okay, so even when the time when they were applying for their masters and PhDs after they completed their graduation from IIT, they did not have any professional mentorship to guide them, and basically nobody to tell them how important research was. It was when they went to the US they realized the importance of research and having a strong research profile. And it can also help you, to get really good job opportunities. It can help you really stand apart from the rest of your peers. Okay, so a first author research or a review paper publication is not just a paper that you publish, but then it significantly adds value to your profile for your entire life. Okay, so this is like an investment that you make in terms of time, but then it will give you lifelong benefits. Okay, so this is when they realized that they were more interested in helping students build their research profiles and, really dig a bit deeper into all about research. Okay, and how research was important. So with this aim, they came to India and they founded Videsh. And now our mission and vision is to help students and working professionals like yourselves to get into your dream universities. And how do we do that? So the major component of getting into the dream university part is to build your research profile. Okay, so that is all about Videsh. These are a few photos of our co-founders winning awards, delivering lectures, etc. So they are highly accomplished in their fields, and that is why they know how to guide students and how to help them build their research profiles. Okay. So, yes, today's agenda is all about what is a research profile, a research paper basics, how to identify a topic for your research paper. If you already have a project that you've done in your undergrad, you can very well convert it into a research paper. And then I'm going to be deep diving into all the details that constitute a research paper. Okay. At the end, I'm also going to be talking about a few mistakes that students make. When they're writing a paper. These are very basic mistakes that they make, but then I'll walk you through them so that you don't repeat the same mistakes. Okay. So yeah, so building a strong research profile, why is it so important? Okay, and what constitutes of a research profile? So like I said, at the beginning of this webinar, we've all done research projects. May it be the projects that you've done in your undergrad or your international research internships. Not just international, but then even the internships that some people pursue in their colleges also. Okay, so These internships or projects usually last for up to 2 to 3 months, but they don't have any considerable value, when you are mentioning them in your resume, when you're mentioning them in your SOP. They don't hold so much value, okay, because a project or an internship is like a half baked cake, right? It's not full yet. You haven't really achieved any tangible results with that yet, okay. So what completes your research profile is the things that are mentioned on the right, that is the papers, conferences, and patents, okay. So something that you're seeing on the left is something that is halfway there, and something that you're seeing on the right is holds extremely high value when you are adding it to your resume or your statement of purpose, okay. That is why research profile is very, very important. Now a research profile can constitute of three different things. It is either a research paper. So a research paper is basically a paper that is written with new research outcomes. A literature review paper is another way to have a first author publication. A review paper is a summary that is written on many different research papers on the same topic. A review paper also has a respected, it is very well respected in its own field, and it holds the same value as writing a research paper, okay. So if you're a complete beginner and you absolutely don't have any experience with research, you can get started with writing a first author review paper, okay. So basically it is a review, it is a summary of many different research papers written on the same topic, okay. The last is the preprints, okay. So either the research papers or the review papers are first submitted to preprints before they are submitted to any actual journals or conferences. So preprints like archive are most commonly used among students, and we also encourage students to first submit their papers to preprints and then submit it to a journal. The reason is that the preprints have more lenient way of reviewing those papers, and that is the reason we encourage students to first send their papers to preprints, okay. So these are the three ways in which you can build your research profile, okay. So one point that I would like to emphasize here is that you don't necessarily have to publish, okay. So it's very important for you to note at this point that even if you have projects or any research internships, it is important to note that it's fine if your papers are not yet published by the time you submit your applications, okay. So considering that you'll be applying for fall of 2026, the deadlines for that will be in the December of this year, and it's completely fine if your paper is still under review or your paper is still in preparation. So why I'm highlighting this point is for you to basically not panic, and tell you that by showing you an example of Dr. Raj's resume, where under his publication section he's mentioned in preparation. So one of the paper that he was writing was in preparation. He had not even submitted it by the time he had applied to MIT. And this, of course, was validated by his professor in his letter of recommendation. Okay. So make sure that your professors validate this information in their letter of recommendation, because only you mentioning it in your statement of purpose or your resume, it's not enough. It has to be validated by your professor as well, okay. But it's completely fine if your paper is not yet published. That is the point that I want to emphasize on. And now we'll dive into research paper basics, okay. So first of all, before beginning this particular point, I would like to stress upon the fact that many students don't really realize the importance of a research paper, and they feel that research paper is not my cup of tea, or even review paper is not my cup of tea. I just have like many projects and I can add them to my resume. I have like probably 9 or 10 projects that I've worked throughout my undergrad, and that's like a lot, right? I don't need to really write a paper and get it published. But that's where most of the students are wrong, and that is where you need to realize the importance of writing a paper, and also um, you know make it a point to know that it doesn't necessarily require any particular skills to write a research paper. It just needs you to be very passionate about a particular topic. It needs you to be patient, confident, and not doubt yourself. Okay, so it's very, very important for you to understand these factors before you delve into the research journey. And it's not like, it's a very big journey and something that you have to self doubt yourself. It's not really that. Okay, a research paper is something that, if followed the right process, you can get this paper published in a very good journal or conference. We have examples to prove this. In the last couple of years, students who don't have any experience in research paper have published papers in extremely good journals. Okay, so that is something that I want to stress upon, and that is where I want to make you understand the importance of a research paper and why you should go ahead and write this paper. Okay, so I'm now going to talk about literature study. Okay, so before writing every paper, it's important that you do a literature study. Okay, so it's not as complicated as it sounds, and it's not as vague as it sounds. This is also a very structured process way that you need to follow. Okay, so what you need to do basically is to know that you have two modes of doing a literature study. So basically, first mode is the in-depth mode, and the second mode is the bird's eye view mode. Okay, so these are two ways to do your literature study. The first way is the in-depth mode, and this is basically done for understanding all the research content that you are reading. Okay, so in this mode, you read an entire paper, and from scratch you read everything, each and everything that is written in that 15 to 20 page paper. And it usually takes more time. It takes about 4 hours, 4 5 hours to read every paper. But then it's important to note that you don't need to read every paper in the in-depth mode. Okay, so first 20 25 papers, it's important that you read in the in-depth mode, and the next papers, like the remaining 25 30 papers, it's fine if you read it in bird's eye view mode. Now, the bird's eye view mode is a quick glance through the research papers, and it usually takes about like half an hour to go through every section of the paper, like not every section, but then abstract, introduction, tables, figures, etc. That is enough to do a bird's eye view study of the paper. Okay, so these are the two ways in which you do a literature study. All right. Now we are going to talk about the findings of the literature review paper. Now, every paper that you read, it's very important that you summarize your paper. Okay, so it's very important that you maintain an Excel sheet like the one mentioned here. And the column G, as you can see, it's this column is the most important. And how it will help you is, it will give you, you have to write a 5 to 7 sentence summary of what you think you have learned from a particular paper. Okay, so this is where you have to write your findings and your point of view, your summary in your words. Okay, so column G is where you jot down the major findings from a particular paper. Okay, so this is how you maintain a master sheet of all the literature study that you've done without losing content. Okay, this is how you make sure that you remember what you've read right from the first to the last paper. Okay, this is an example how you maintain this manually. Okay, now, what are the tools that you should familiarize yourselves with when writing a research paper? The first tool is Mendeley. This tool is basically used for managing references. Okay, so using Mendeley, you can create a library of papers that you've read, and this is exactly the software version of the manual Excel sheet that I just showed right now. Okay, so you can create a library of the literature study that you've done in Mendeley software, and we'll of course be sharing the links of these the softwares in the YouTube recording of this video. You can then go along and check it. Okay, so Mendeley is particularly used for managing references, and it is a software version of the Excel sheet that I just showed you. Okay, Overleaf is something, I'll just show how it looks like. So basically, this is how the paper on the right is the final version, and the paper on the left is something, that takes your text in and converts it into a latex document. Okay, so you don't need to know any kind of programming or anything. You just have to put in the text, and Overleaf will use the correct formatting, and it will give your paper a very professional look. Okay, so for those of students who are new to research and who want to convert their projects into research, start using Overleaf and start writing, your topic and your own first author name here. Okay, so when you do that, the amount of confidence that it gives you is exemplary, and that is something that will keep you going. Okay, so this is a software that we recommend students to use. Of course, you can use Microsoft Word as well, but then Overleaf makes the paper look extremely professional, and it's very, very easy to use also. So this is one software that you should use. The next software is Litmaps. Now I'll just show you with an example of how Litmaps looks like. Just a minute. Yeah, so when you click on Litmaps, you have to first, enter the literature study of a paper uh, title that you are reading, for you to understand which paper you should read next. Okay, so this is basically for you to understand which paper I should read next, so that it will help you in your literature study. When you put this in the search option, you get something like this. Now, this is the paper that Dr. Raj wrote, and on the left you can see the papers that Dr. Raj has used in his paper or has cited in his paper, and on the right are all the papers that have cited Dr. Raj's paper. Okay, so this will help you a lot in your literature study. And the paper that you're reading right now, you have to just enter the title of that paper in Litmaps, and on the left and on the right you will get all of the papers that are on the same field, and you will also know that which paper has cited which paper. Okay, so Litmaps is also a very good tool that will help you in your literature study. All right. And like I said, Mendeley is basically used for maintaining a reference library. Right. Now we move on to the topic of identifying the topic for your paper. Okay. So this is the most important topic that you need to understand before you get started. Okay. So I would strongly urge you to pick a project topic that you've already worked on and try converting it into a research paper, because we are already in the month of June, and if you already have a project that has the potential to be converted into a research paper, then well and good. If not, definitely I'll tell you what you need to do. You first need to identify broad areas of your research interest. Okay, I have just jotted down a few areas. So AIML, aerodynamics, material science, economics. So these are some of the broad areas that I've just jotted down. Okay, and then what you have to do is you have to narrow down to 2 or 3 specific topics with your areas of interest. Okay, so for example, in AIML, scientific machine learning is something that is more specific. Okay, so for example, these are the 5 topics that I have jotted down, and there will be some 2 or 3 specific topics that are a specific version of the broad topics. Okay, so in your particular domain, whichever field you're from, you have to narrow down to 2 or 3 specific topics depending upon your area of interest. Okay, and then how do you identify your topic? So first, when you've narrowed down to 2 or 3 topics, first of all, you will start by doing a literature study by identifying 5 papers from a similar domain. Okay, so you will first read 5 papers that will help you identify a topic that is close to those narrowed down 2 or 3 areas of interest. Okay, and how do you search papers? Okay, so there are 2 things that you need to keep in mind when you are doing a literature study to identify your topic. The first is that you have to search for papers that are not older than 2015 or 16. Refrain from reading papers that are older than 10 years before. Okay. And then pick papers with good number of citations. Ideally 50 to 100 citations are a good number. So pick papers for your literature study that have more number of citations. Okay. So when you are done with with literature study of 5 to 10 papers to identify a topic, that is when you decide, you know, from doing the literature study, you know which topic you want to write a research paper on. Okay. And then these papers are on Google Scholar also, and you can also find which paper to read next from lit maps also. Okay. So there are a number of ways in which you can really do a very processed literature study. It doesn't have to be random, and it will help you a lot if it's not random. Okay. So I would suggest you to do a very processed study using lit maps. Okay. So this is how you decide a topic, and this is how you basically narrow down to a particular topic that will tell your specific story. Okay. So it's very important, if you're writing a research paper, the novelty of the paper is extremely important. So when you're telling your story, when you're deciding which story I want to tell, it's very important to know where you're coming from, and why you have chosen this particular story. Okay. So this is a topic that will decide the quality of the rest of your paper. Okay. So give it enough time, and before coming being final with a particular topic, spend good amount of time doing literature study on the specific topic that you like. Okay. Because a good and an impactful research paper topic will really elevate the quality of your research paper, right? So we are now moving to the paper outline. I will now tell you, after you've chosen a specific topic for your research paper, how to go about a paper outline. Okay, so what exactly is a paper outline? A paper outline consists basically of title, abstract, introduction, tables, and figures. These are the 5 things that a paper outline consists of, and this will form the skeleton of your paper. Okay. The 12 things that are mentioned here are the total constituents of a research paper, but the 5 things that I told you about right now, they constitute a paper outline. Okay. And we will first proceed to write a paper outline, and then we will write a complete manuscript that will include these 12 points. Okay. So how does a paper outline help you to finish a paper? So like I said, the paper outline is a skeletal component. It's extremely important that you first work on these 5 elements of a research paper, and then these 5 elements will help you to actually write a full manuscript. Okay. So I'll first talk about the templates. You have 2 templates to choose from. Like I said, you can use the MS Word template, or you can use the overleaf template. It's completely up to you. The first part of the paper outline is the title. Now the title is a 12 to 13 word, generally 12 to 13 words. It shouldn't be more than that or less than that, and it should give you a complete insight into what your paper is going to be about. Okay. If it is a review paper, it's very important to mention in the title that this is a review paper. And if it is a research paper, there's no need to mention anything about a review paper. Okay. But it's very important to be super clear in the title about what your paper is going to be about. Okay. See, like I said, a paper title should not be more or less than 10 to 12 words. And that is generally enough to describe what your paper is going to be all about. Okay. We now move on to the abstract. Now, the abstract is basically a 200 to 300 word essay, and it is going to give a clear insight into what your paper is going to be about. And since we don't want to tell you that an abstract is some random 200 word essay that gives you an insight into your paper, we've broken down this abstract into 4 parts. Okay. So the first part will focus on the large scale problems. For example, dust accumulation on solar panels is a major challenge as it blocks a large portion of sunlight. So this is the large scale problem, and this caters to a wider audience. Okay, so these are the two things that are to be remembered when you write the first part of the abstract. The second part will focus on consumption of water for cleaning, especially in deserts. So this is like a specific challenge that you're talking about, and this will not cater to a wider audience. This will cater to a very specific audience who are experts in that particular field. Okay, the third part will talk about specific merits and the details of your approach, and this is the most important part in your abstract. Okay, and this is where you have to mention the details of your approach and what new you have done. Okay, so this is also catering to a very specific and expert audience and not a wider audience, and you end the abstract with wider implications. Okay, so this again caters to a wider audience. And for ease of remembering, we call the abstract as an hourglass approach. So basically you can see that how the two ends of the hourglass are wider, and the two ends in the the two points in the middle are narrow. Okay, so that is how you remember how to write an abstract, and that is how you should go about writing the abstract in a very pointed form. So you use pointers to write an abstract and then convert it into an essay. Okay, so write these 4 pointers. It will give you a very structured way to work on your abstract, and that is how you will convert it later on into an essay. Okay, so now we move on to the introduction section of the paper. So first of all, what is an introduction section? Okay, so introduction section tells the reader the significance of your paper. Okay, so it's not like an abstract. It just doesn't give you a glimpse. It basically is a 1,000 to 1,500 word essay which completely focuses on what new results you are talking about, what you have done, and for your ease of understanding also, we have broken down the introduction section into 5 parts. Okay, so like the abstract, we want you to go in a very structured way when you're writing an introduction, because 1,000 word essay can be a bit overwhelming, when somebody is asked to write it. Okay, so we've decided to talk to you about the 5 points that constitute an introduction section. And this section also we encourage you to write in pointers. Okay, so then we can later on convert it into a total like 1,500 word essay. Okay, so the first part of the introduction section is what is the problem. So problem statement is very important that you mention the problem statement. The second point is how are people trying to solve this problem. Okay, so this is where you write about your literature study and what are people trying to do to solve this particular problem. Okay, and then the third point is dealing with what are the current issues with the current approaches. So this is where you are starting to really deep dive into what new you have done. Okay, so you're slowly getting there, and the third point will deal with the issues with current approaches. Okay, and fourth point is the most important. Fourth and fifth point is what do you propose, and fifth point is the large scale implications of your solution. Okay, so during the entire introduction section, it is very important to maintain the novelty of your research work. Okay, so it sometimes happens that students are more focused on mentioning the things that they've learned in literature study, but then they don't spend that much words or sentences writing about their approach and what they propose and what novelty they have added into this research paper. But then it's very important to add the novelty. Okay, so these 5 points will basically form an introduction section, and you can write 5 pointers in the introduction section when you're writing the paper outline at the start, and then we can convert this into an essay. Okay, The next part that we are going to talk about is the figures. Okay, so basically figures are the backbone of papers, because visual representation of anything is so much better than reading text. Okay, and whenever a particular reviewer is looking at your paper, they will first look at the figures, because that is something that is visual, and a visual interpretation usually catches the attention very quickly. Okay, so it's very important that your figures are extremely aligned with one another and they tell the same story. Okay, so your figure 1 should be aligned with your figure 2, and then your figure 3. So it should be in a very processed and a structured manner. Okay, so it's important to know that these 6 pointers are something that constitute a beautiful figure. Okay, so first is high resolution. It's very important that your figures are high resolution. Okay, and whenever the reviewers are trying to zoom it, they don't blur. Okay, so it's very important to have a high resolution, legible access text and labels, and then consistent choice of colors, font family, and font size, and incredibly well aligned with sub figures. Okay, so I'll give you an example later on of what I mean by all these pointers and what constitutes a good figure. Okay, so it's very important to have titles, legend, and sub figure numbers. It's also very important to have consistent font sizes. Okay, so you can create your figures using either Canva or Adobe Illustrator, or you can use the traditional methods like Excel or PPT. Okay, so if you're using Overleaf, you can also you can also create figures using Overleaf. But then this is an example figure that I want to talk to you about, which is so beautifully created and which has all the elements, and it's so beautifully described as well, and the sub figures are also labeled, and there's extremely correct use of font size and font colors. Okay, so there's a figure number, a figure title, a sub figure number, a sub figure description also. So this is how your figure should be. Every figure should be labeled, every sub figure should be labeled, and there should be a proper description. Okay, so it's very important to give a crisp, clear description of every figure, and it's very important to maintain the font sizes also. Right, like I said, you can insert figures from Overleaf as well. So we are now moving to the next part of the paper outline, that is the tables. We have seen up till now title, abstract, introduction, figures. We are moving now on to the last part of the paper outline, that is the tables. Okay, so like the figures, tables also give a visual representation of the text. So if there's a possibility that you're able to convert text into a figure, I would encourage you to use a table instead. But then like the rules I said for figures are applicable, the same rules apply for tables. Every table has to be labeled, described, the font size, font color, everything is extreme, the consistency is extremely important. So you need to keep all these things in check when you're inserting a table. Okay, and the accuracy is also extremely important. Okay, because like a figure, a reviewer is going to look at your table first. Okay, so that is why it is a major component of the paper outline, a major component of the skeleton of your paper. Okay, so tables also can be inserted in Overleaf. That is why we encourage our students to use Overleaf. It's comparatively easy than creating figures in Canva or AI and then inserting them into a paper. You can do it in Overleaf as well. Now we are done with the paper outline, and we are now moving on to other sections of the paper. The first is the adding references part. Okay, so whenever you're writing an introduction, if you remember, the first and the second point constitute of mentioning the references that you've read in your literature study. Okay, so whenever you're writing an introduction, write an introduction, bullet pointed introduction with references itself. Okay, so it's very important, at the same time that you're writing introduction, write the references so that you can use those references in the separate references section that you're going to prepare later on. Okay, because there is a section in the introduction that talks about existing, what people have done, okay, to solve those problems. That is what you have learned in your literature study. Okay, and that is the references that you need to talk about, and that is something that you need to do when you're writing your introduction section, so that you will have a separate section to write upon, that is the references section. Okay, so like I said, the paper outline consists of 5 parts, and I've told you about these 5 parts that constitute of a paper outline. The next section is the acknowledgement section. Now, an acknowledgement section is also a simple short section that you will be very familiar with once you do a literature study of so many papers. Every paper has an acknowledgement section. This is just an example, a few examples that I have mentioned here. So it's a short and simple section that you can write at the end as well. Okay. So now we are at the point where we can convert a bullet pointed introduction to a full version. That is, we have those five pointers mentioned, and we have to now convert these 5 points into a 1,500 essay. Okay, so that is where we decide to use 5 or 6 paragraphs, where we, in every paragraph, we mention every single point. Okay, so that is how we maintain the clarity and clear vision. Okay, so that is where we are very clear and processed. Okay, so one more thing that I would like to mention here is that please do not use any writing tools or chat gpt when crafting those paragraphs or converting the bullet pointed introduction into a full version, because the reviewers have an AI detector installed in most of the cases now, and if you use any kind of writing tools or chat gpt, it mostly will get your papers rejected, and it will basically all the effort that you've put into writing this paper will be zeroed down. Okay, so it's important to not use any writing tools, and it's important to be very creative, and be your own self, and on your own try to expand these bullet pointed points into a full paragraphs. Okay, so that is very, very important. Next, we move on to the conclusion section of the paper. Now, the conclusion section is basically, it has the same length as of the abstract. It is a 200 to 300 word essay, and it's basically, it summarizes your entire paper, and then it usually consists of your actual takeaways. Okay, so that is something that you have to mention in the conclusion sections. It is again a simple and short section that can be written at the very end. Okay, now we have moved to writing the entire paper manuscript, and this is where you are really getting almost close to completing the paper writing. Okay, I also want to talk about one more section that is completely optional, but you can mention it if you want. Now, this is the supplementary section. Okay, and if there are a lot of references that you want to add, or if it so happens that there are a lot of references that cannot be added to the references section, you can use a supplementary section. You can, it's not mandatory, but then you can add data like figures, text, code, or anything else that you want to mention. Okay, so I am now going to take you through some of the writing styles and the tense grammar mistakes that students do, and I'm going to talk about a little bit of those, because they might seem very simple when you're listening to it, or when I'm talking about it, but then actually when you start writing a paper, it's very important, and easily these mistakes happen. Okay, so that is something that is very important. Now, the first thing is the writing style. Okay, so there, it's very important to note that use of active voice is very important, and you should never use passive voice, because a passive voice sounds something like this: the imaging was performed using SEM. Okay, so this makes the reviewer feel that you are not somebody who's doing the experiment, you're observing that from far, and you are not actually working on this paper. Okay, so that gives a negative impression to the reviewers. And an active voice sounds something like this: we performed the imaging using SEM. So this is something where you take ownership, and this is the active voice is something that you should use in your paper, because that makes the reviewer feel that this particular student, this particular author has actually performed the experiments and has actually derived the results. Okay, so that is extremely important, using active voice instead of passive voice. Okay, and then about tenses also, now many students get confused on which tenses to use for which sections. Okay, so as a rule of thumb, you can consider that you can use a present tense for analysis or conclusions, and the past tense can be used for experiments conducted. Okay, so this is like a rule of thumb, and this is how you should use past and present tenses, right? The next point that we're coming to is very basic, but then a complete no when it comes to making grammar and spelling mistakes. Okay, so with tools like Grammarly, it is almost unacceptable to make spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes. Okay, so at this point, you're almost at the stage where you have written the paper manuscript, and now I would, just ask you to go a bit, old style, right? Like taking a printout of your entire paper manuscript, sit with a highlighter in your hand and be your own critic. Okay, so read every line, every word that you've written, and try to highlight any mistakes that you can find, any grammar mistakes, any tense mistakes, any active passive voice mistakes. So try to, mark that with a highlighter. Even the slightest thing that crosses a doubt in your mind, highlight it. Okay, so be your own critic, and that is what you should do when you're at the end of writing a paper manuscript. Okay, so after you've done writing the entire manuscript, now is the time when you identify a journal for submission. Okay, so how do you identify this journal? Okay, so what you do is, first of all, you go to Google Scholar, and then you find the journals where similar papers are submitted. Okay, it's completely impossible that you are doing some novel research that nobody has ever worked upon, so that's not possible. So it's advisable for you to find the journals in which similar papers are published. Okay, and then how do you decide which journal to submit to? Now that is, you decide that using two factors. The first is the impact factor of a journal. Okay, so an impact factor basically depends on the number of citations that a particular journal has. And for undergrad students, I would say an impact factor of 1 to 3 or 3 to 10 is considered perfectly fine. Okay, and then the next is the cost of publication. Okay, so every journal, there is a cost of publication, and it's very important to note that this cost of publication differs from different journals. Okay, so we encourage students to, in make an Excel sheet. In the first column, write the journal name. In the second column, write the impact factor of that journal, and in the third column, mention the cost of submitting. Okay, so whether or not your paper gets published in a particular journal, it's very important for you to note that you still have to pay the publication fee, the submission fee. Okay, um, if you decide to submit your paper in a particular conference, that does not have any charges of submission. But then if your paper gets accepted in that conference, you might have to pay charges of, traveling to that particular place where the conference is being conducted, or you might have to, if you're staying there, you might have to incur those charges. But then there is no as such upfront cost of submission if you're deciding to submit your paper to a conference. Okay, so what happens when you submit your paper to a journal? So what happens post submission? So first of all, an editorial review takes place, where in which you're supposed to send a cover letter to the reviewer. This is another chance where you can highlight yourself and like project yourself really well. And then, a peer review takes place, and then there's a revision that takes place if required. So if at the third stage the reviewers feel that your papers need another revision with so and so changes, then you will be informed, and that is when you have to submit it again. And then if your paper, if it's accepted, it will result in a publication. Okay, so after every stage, if your paper passes every stage, you will get an acceptance of a confirmation that you've passed this particular stage and your paper is going on to the next stage. Okay, so the entire process of publishing takes about 6 to 8 weeks depending upon the reviewer's availability. If somebody happens to be on a holiday or on vacation, or they're not available for some unforeseen reason, it's possible that it might get delayed. Okay, so that is also important to note, that the publication post submission also, it is time consuming task, and it still requires a lot of patience. Okay, and then if your paper gets rejected, if it's not submitted, you still can write about it in your portfolio website, or you can still mention about it in your SOP or your resume. Okay, so the first paper, it's very common for first papers to get rejected. It's completely common, and you shouldn't take it personally. But then go ahead with all your learnings, and you should really deep dive in why my paper was rejected. So it's completely fine, and even top professors at top universities also have paper rejection, so it's completely fine, and it's important that you don't take it personally. Okay, so now we are at the end of the research paper writing part, and we've written a research paper. I've told you how to write a research paper, and going to talk about now how we can help you write a research paper. Okay, so, in the long-term mentorship program, we are first of all focusing with building a research profile and the storytelling in the application. So, the two most important things in your application process, we are combining those two things together, and then we are also helping to plan your timeline. Okay, so giving you a realistic timeline is also something that is extremely important to us, because we don't have all the time in the world, and you are also very busy. We understand that, so it's very important for you to allocate that particular time of the week for this particular process, and that is why we believe in realistic timelines. Okay, so the long-term mentorship phase one will basically focus on your research profile, and this is where I think you should take the maximum benefit of Videsh long-term mentorship program phase one. And why I'm stressing on it right now is because we are in the month of June, and it takes about 3 months to select a topic and write a research paper or a review paper. Okay, so by the end of first or second week of September, you will be ready with your research paper if you start now. If you are late by a month or so, you might not have the time to work on your research paper as well as your SOP and your resume, and all the documentation part. Okay, so it's imperative that if you want to apply for good graduate schools and get admits from top universities, it is imperative to start building your research profile. Okay, the next phase of the long-term mentorship program focuses on perfecting the application. So it consists of university shortlisting, statement of purpose. We help you to draft 3 letters of recommendation. We help you with basic preparation for GRE, TOEFL, and IELTS. And then we also help you with resume preparation, and we help you to build a portfolio website, which is extremely important. Okay, this is the Videsh research assessment tool that we are sending out to students once they've enrolled with us. This is for us to know how well versed you are with research. Okay, so once you enroll in our program, you will be sent this form, and you will be asked to fill this form in detail. This is some of the success stories that we have. We have a lot of students that have completed different projects, who have converted projects into research papers, who have done different research internships, and we've helped students write over 100 resumes, SOPs, and LORs. We've also helped people build good portfolio website that have given them a competitive edge over the rest of their peers. And we also have a Discord community where once you enroll with us, we onboard you to the Discord community, so you can interact with other people who have enrolled in the particular program. Okay, so peer interaction, we believe, is very, very important, and that is why we've created the Discord community. As I mentioned at the start, that people who don't really have an exact experience in research have published beautiful research papers. These are examples of a few of those papers that people have published. with no major experience in research. They've only either converted their projects into research papers, or they've written a completely new review paper. Okay, so these are some examples from long-term mentorship phase one, that is building your research profile. These are some testimonials that we have received from our students, and we are extremely proud of them for getting into, top universities, good universities. And there are a lot more universities than the ones mentioned here, and we are extremely proud of our students. So these are a few more testimonials that we've received. So what we do, what difference we make is we help you to identify good and easy problem statements that can be converted into a research papers. We teach you how to write papers. Now, this is something that, through this webinar, I've tried to impart maximum knowledge to you about how to write a paper. But then we understand every student is different. Every student has a different way of thinking. And that is why we believe a lot in catering to every student differently. Okay. And this particular long-term mentorship batch is being guided by one of our co-founders, so who are MIT and Purdue alumni. So you can get in touch with them, you can interact with them, and you can learn a lot from their experiences. Okay, so that is where we help you. And also, like I said, I talked about a realistic timeline. So it's very imperative for us to complete all the phases of the long term mentorship program within the designated time frame. And that is why once you enroll with us, we give you a roadmap which you are expected to follow, and through the roadmap we tell you the process for the next 6 months. Okay, so that is how structured we are, and that is why we believe in realistic timelines. Okay, and then we also help you to figure out and submit to journals. And if there's an upcoming conference coming up, we also tell you that this particular conference is coming up, you can submit your paper here. So this is also something that we do. This guidance is also something that we provide. Okay, so like I said, like I've been mentioning in this webinar, your resume on the left is, it doesn't have much more value than the resume on the right. Okay, so a publication section is much more accepted and renowned than having 10 different projects. Okay, this is just a glimpse of life at MIT, and this is top universities like these really give you a chance to explore so much. And culturally, and there's such a diverse group of people that you can learn so much from. Okay, so this is an inspirational photo of Dr. Sridath, one of our co-founders. And at the end, I would also like to talk about our scientific machine learning bootcamp. Okay, so along with the long-term mentorship program, this is a particular bootcamp for people who want to transition or who want an experience in their profile in the field of machine learning. Okay, so this is where we help students to write research papers in their field of domain and machine learning. Okay, this is for people who either want to add an ML experience in their profile, who want to make a complete transition to machine learning. Okay, so scientific machine learning can be applied to all fields. Basically, you can combine every field with ML and write a good research paper in that particular field. Okay, so this particular boot camp is divided into 4 parts. Let me just take you through the boot camp. I'll be taking you through the website now to mention all the different programs that we have for our scientific machine learning bootcamp. So you can make an informed choice of how you want to develop your research profile, whether it is by enrolling in long-term mentorship program with us, or by joining the scientific machine learning bootcamp. Okay, so we have 4 plans. The first plan is the student plan, where we go through all the basics of scientific machine learning, and there are videos and pre-recorded lectures and assignments at the end of every lecture that you're supposed to submit. Okay, so this is the first plan. The second plan is the community plan. This is like a one way above the student plan, in a way that you also get an access to a community of people. We also onboard you to a Discord channel of other participants, so that you can discuss amongst yourselves. And also we will guide you personally through the community plan. Like if you have any doubts that you're facing when you're going through those lectures, you can get in touch with us and we will provide you personalized guidance. Okay. The third plan is the SciML Bootcamp Researcher Plan. Now, this is the most popular plan, in a way that this plan combines the community plan with the research element. Okay. So basically, the researcher plan focuses on, in addition to the basics of machine learning, it will focus on writing a research paper in your domain and the field of machine learning. The fourth plan is basically catering to industry professionals and is an extension of the researcher plan, in a way that you will be producing a research paper at the end, but the topic selection will be pertaining a lot to the industry. Okay. So these are the four plans of the scientific machine learning bootcamp. And we have like this plan also can be combined with the phase 2 of the application process, and then we can still help you to build your applications. Okay. So you can either go ahead with phase 1 of the long term mentorship program, or you can go ahead with the scientific machine learning bootcamp. Okay. It's completely up to you. These are the four plans that I explained right now. These are some of the student testimonials that our students have written for us. Now, if you're interested in the long-term mentorship program or in the scientific machine learning bootcamp, please write an email to us at hello@flyvidesh.com, mentioning your all the details, as many details as possible. And also you can book a call with me. I'm giving the link on the chat. So if you are confused about which plan to join, you can also book a one-to-one consultation call with me, where I can help you to, upon your understanding your profile, I will help you to choose a particular plan. Okay. So I'm sharing the link, the registration link, in my email, in the chat of this webinar, so you can go ahead and book a call with me as well. Okay. So I think we are at the fag end. Yeah, it's almost 8 o'clock, but we have our co-founders, Dr. Raj and Dr. Rajat, on the call. So if you would like to take I don't know, one or two questions, if it's possible. I don't know, I'll stop sharing my screen, and over to you, Dr. Raj and Dr. Rajat.
Thanks, Radhika, for the webinar. One last thing I would like to address is many people are asking that they are beginners and how to start building their research profile. So from my own personal experience, when I was in the second year of my college, I had no research experience, and I randomly knocked on the office of a professor and asked him that, can I do a research project with you? At that time, I thought that he would just reject my request because I had literally no experience. But he gave me a project and onboarded me to work with some PhD students of his. That started my research journey completely. So if you are in college, you can follow this approach of meeting professors directly. Whereas if you are out of college, you can either do independent research, such as doing a literature review paper on your own, or you can collaborate with professors by emailing them, or you can take help from organizations such as us who will help you in your research journey. But research is extremely crucial, whether you plan to go to grad school, transition to new jobs. And I learned that very late. But now that I see the job landscape and the grad school transition landscape evolving, I've seen that the moment you have a prestigious research publication on your profile, the value of your resume goes up. Value of projects is decreasing because now many of the people can do it using chat GPT, LLMs, etc. You cannot publish papers using AI tools yet. So the value of research will go on increasing. So it's a good investment. All right. So thanks everyone for attending. We are at the end of this webinar. Again, thanks Radhika for this excellent session. And we'll meet again in the next webinar.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.